Welcome back. We are doing another kind of retrospective of a big franchise. Uh, as always, I'm your host, Mike of Greyworks, the creator of Howling Hoods and Missing Manhattan. And today I'm joined by two special guests, Josh and Mac. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh, the host of the Afternoon Tune there podcast where I play where Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, all that good stuff on social medias. Email theafternoon@gmail.com, twitch.tv/afternoon, usually streaming every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, sometimes Wednesday there. Mac is a frequent guest on the show at times. We're going to be starting One Piece hopefully pretty soon. That's a beast. Trying to review that arc by arc. But at this moment, anime wise, I'm doing Hunter x Hunter, which I'm going to be doing
Nice.
Sage from Radiant Maturity. We're going to be doing that Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're doing that arc. He's also going to do some video game reviews there. Metal Gear Solid 3, the original one. He's also going to be doing a review for X-Men Legends, doing a retro review for that as well. But yeah, this upcoming Monday, I'm not going to be, this upcoming Friday, I'm not going to be there. But Nick, my co-host, and Dusk, my other co-host, they're going to be doing a review for Alien Romulus, which is the new movie coming out. So we're a movie review channel, podcast, pop culture, news, all that great stuff there. Also YouTube, The Afternoon Tune, trying to get the 2K subs there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. I'm a frequent guest on the Afternoon Tune, so make sure to check them out. The links will be in below. Mac, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Mac from Macabre Storytelling. I'm mostly on YouTube. I do have a Twitter, but that's mostly me rage posting against red pill dudes and politics. But mostly it's on YouTube. I do media analysis. Sometimes I dabble in men's issues. I kind of had a little snag in my next long form video, which is the Barry video.
Nice.
So I think I'm going to do a shorter form video on Roadhouse, the Patrick Swayze classic.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the new movie?
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's weird.
It's really weird. I think it's annoying too because obviously if you haven't seen Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze's the original, you would think, oh, it's just him beating the shit out of people. But it's actually no, it's actually a pretty I don't want to say super deep, but it's somewhat astute in it's a condemnation of violence. It preaches, not resorting to violence only if you have to. I think it's a lot more complex,
nuanced than people think.
Than people give it credit for. Whereas the new one was just did you even watch the original film? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Jake Gyllenhaal's in it, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal, but kind of works best when he's just playing unstable people. When he just plays a creep.
Didn't they say that was getting a sequel?
Yeah, it is.
Conor McGregor was going to come back. And
did he get stabbed through the throat?
I think he lived at the end, didn't he?
Maybe, okay, I might be wrong.
I can't.
Yeah, I remember. My friend told me about it, and I just got a text from my buddy Sam. It was just Conor McGregor is has the best and worst ADR job in this movie.
But I don't know what happened to Kyle. He kind of got built weird. He's
a
lot more muscle, but not enough neck. And
I think it's I don't want to no, I don't care actually. If you actually see photos of him side by side, because he's been fit, he's been very athletic his whole career. It very much seems like he's on some sort of his neck has tripled in size. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, or even his jawline, if you look at his actual jaw, it's bigger. That usually speaks to something HGH or something.
A bit, yeah.
Also, I think he's kind of lost his marbles a bit. People have mentioned interviews, sometimes you can't even understand what he's saying half the time because he's just mumbling and rambling. But
yeah, and that might be right. They had the ADR him, and in that movie, he kind of has a bit we see him kind of naked at one, and the way he's walking, it's very a bit too upper body heavy for someone of his size, which is kind of built like a gorilla, which is our transition into our subject today of Planet of the Apes, the Rise franchise. This is a kind of a silent powerhouse franchise in a way, because like all these movies have done well. They're all very critically well received. Uh, have like really good storytelling, but for some reason they're never like the biggest movie of the year or talked in the same way of like, oh, this is like the grand epic. It's like, oh no, these are just like one of the just a really solid like movie franchise. And yeah, I think it's kind of like it kind of deserves a bit more praise, which is what we're gonna get into. We're gonna talk about like the history behind this and just like how well this franchise has just lasted, and like both and like how well it was made, especially when it came to like its origin of it, because the original origin of this movie was the director. He uh wanted he would take newspapers and he would find them, and he found a bunch of like newspaper articles of like chimpanzees who are raised in human homes and habitats, and how like after like a certain amount of time they would just like freak out and just maul someone to death. And he also looked at like stuff like Nim Chimpsky and stuff like that, of like apes that were taught to be more intelligent. And he's like, what if I can make a movie out of this? And he went to Fox with the idea and stuff like that. And they eventually kind of rebranded. What if this is like an origin, a retelling for Planet of the Apes, a more realistic version of it compared to the book and the original movies from the 60s. Are you guys familiar with Caesar from the original series?
I've never seen the original.
Okay.
Same. I think I saw OG Charlton Heston like years and years ago, but I actually didn't even really know there was that many other movies until just recently. I was like, what are there, like 8 of them or something? Or
there's Beneath Battle. There's 5
after the original.
No, including the original.
Okay.
There's a few TV shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you want to count the Mark Wahlberg one. But that's actually a reason why this got made, because after the Mark Wahlberg one had like such critical panning, people were like, we don't really care about Planet of the Apes. We don't have any plans for it, so go ahead and do it. But yeah, okay. In the original series, Caesar's not in the first movie because the first movie is based on the book. In Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the direct sequel to the first movie, we go underground. We find a mutated human civilization, as well as like one of the leftover nuclear bombs, and that bomb gets ignited and completely wipes out the planet. It wipes out the planet except for the fact that 3 of the apes from the previous movie, Dr. Milo, Zyra, and Cornelius, went into a spaceship and used the exact same wormhole Charles Heston used to travel back in time this time. And they arrive at present day, the 1970. And you know, they kind of like, they're like, we're from your future and all this stuff. And the villain, the governor, is very, very paranoid because they like other apes from the future who they say like humanity gets wiped out, and he orchestrates a plan to kill each of them. Zyra and Cornelius both die, but they orchestrate a plan to have their son, Caesar, who they renamed to be Caesar, be raised in basically a zoo. After some time, Caesar's taken in by the government as well, where they're experimenting on apes to become, you know, more intelligent and basically turn them into like slaves. And he starts the ape revolution there. And then in Battle for Planet of the Apes, there's the huge human ape giant war. But in that movie, there is a conflict between him and a gorilla. And because of like a gorilla kills Caesar's son, humans and ape kind of like at the end they like make peace and they split off from the timeline. And it's implied that apes and humans like live peacefully from that moment onwards. And this is kind of not like a bit more realistic version of, or like a more grounded telling of that story to a degree, with Caesar like being more primitive and being more of a test subject of like what would it actually be like if like, you know, if in our world apes suddenly became more intelligent.
Yeah, it was. I think the biggest thing for me, what I was surprised by, is obviously Dawn was kind of the one where people, that was when they were kind of like, oh wow, this is a series we should pay attention to, and it was highly acclaimed, and so was War. However, what was strange is I always kind of got the impression from people that Rise was it's kind of like the odd man out, kind of mediocre.
A bit. I wouldn't say mediocre, but it is very different from the other 3 movies.
Well, that's why I was surprised, because that's kind of how it felt like when people would talk about it. Me and my wife watched it. We loved it. It was like, I think it was like incredibly. I think I even teared up when actually no, that was we teared up when
Caesar gets left in the prison.
It was when he erases the window. That was when I was like, oh my god. But for me, it was when James Franco goes to like let him out, and Caesar stands up and then closes the door. I literally think me and my wife both like, oh, like it was just like a very, I don't remember having a reaction like that to a movie, especially, granted, I do think the human storyline, James Franco, well, actually, John Lithgow as the grandfather, I thought that was very touching too. The central romance between him and Frida were kind of but overall, I think it was a much stronger film than it kind of did get overshadowed by Dawn of War, but very strong film.
I think what also makes all these movies in general work is that it can very much just be its own thing, and like it leads to like the future is like the Charles Heston future in the movie, but like each of these movies are self-contained stories. It's not so much like, I don't know, it's not like the director came out with like the phase 1 of the Planet of the Apes saga of like, we're gonna go here, then we're gonna have Dawn, and then we're gonna have Koba come in, then we're gonna have we're gonna jump 300 years into the future. They're all very. It does feel like all these movies are very focused to be about the story, of course, and all that. And I think what really the digital stuff in this movie is just incredible. And originally, this movie was planned to be made a bit more like practical. Like they thought they were either going to use makeup or stuff like even like some real chimps to a degree. But then, after it was a combination of the influence of Khan, Avatar, and Lord of the Rings, and Andy Serkis that they were kind of proven that they can make a movie like this in digital. And I think it's all the better for it, because like there in Rise in 2011, there's a few kind of like funkiness to it, but like for the most part, all the apes just look incredibly solid, and just like they look like apes. And it's one of those things that kind of show like when you're able to commit it, as well as to like put so much put so much like detail and time and know your vision of the movie, it's going to turn out great. Josh, were you taken out by the effects in Rise, or is it more like or were you there the whole time?
No, I thought the effects were pretty good. I mean, Rise came out in 2011, so that was
a big Avatar.
Over a decade ago there. And then I know some people brought up these movies in comparison to the older films and saying that, sometimes, makeup, practical effects are always better. But, here's an example of CGI. Like, you couldn't do this really without CGI. I mean, the way they do it with the mocap and Andy Serkis and facial expressions are all very real, and everything like that. So the attention to detail is really good, I think.
Also, the actor who plays Rocket, Terry Notary, he was also a big part in like helping gain all the acting to work, because it's not just like the effects you need, because they need the physicality for the apes as well. And they put like these stilts on their hands to like mimic get the choreography right. And that bridge scene, if you kind of look at the behind the scenes of it,
it looked insane.
Well, yeah, but also not only was that the largest motion capture of the time, but there was also so much work into removing getting all the reflections right, because you also have to deal with not just the CGI of the apes, but you have the CGI of the reflections of like the cars and like the windows and stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you think that the latest one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, for it to be like 300 years in the future? Did you think that was not? It didn't show enough like this is 300 years in the future, or
Well, maybe to a degree, because somewhat, but at the same time, it's also like they basically went from like almost like borderland caveman apes with some like human technology just lying around to kind of like in a more like Roman setting. But yeah, we'll get to the lore of Planet of the Apes to a degree in the future. But that's another thing in all these movies. There's so much interesting silent world building from just like the background and like just the species of the characters themselves. Of one of the most notable characters, well, two of the most notable characters, Caesar. He stands very upright and he has like the most human qualities of the series because he was raised by humans in like a human household and all that stuff. But also one of the great villains, Koba, there's so much world building with just his look and the species that he is of being a bonobo, and kind of like the horrific implications of like what happened when he was a test subject after he was a after he was a TV ape, basically. But yeah, Koba is actually a bonobo ape, and for the most part, bonobos are very, very nice and chill, and they're very social apes to the point where they can even like they're very human in the manner of like they do stuff for pleasure rather than just like survival. So the fact that like Koba is just this aggressive and this wrathful is just like there's something wrong happened.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because obviously before I even saw Dawn, I saw there was like the big meme going around like Koba should be in every movie.
Koba every movie. We all should.
I like those. So those were fun. But I was very surprised how it was not they. It's funny too because like he is praised as such an excellent villain, and he is. But what I like about it is how he he isn't just a villain in the sense of like he is the bad guy. He's more of what's what I'm looking for. He is sort of the other side of the coin to Caesar's philosophy of this idea that humans and apes can live together. And I think a lesser writer would have, the humans are the ones who are always bad, and us apes are just like the poor guys trying to. But to have Koba there, it kind of throws his worldview into a frenzy where he's like, no, we're supposed to be the good guys. We're supposed to be the ones who want peace. But now he sees that there are good humans and there are bad apes, and it kind of he still really wants to pursue this world, but now he realizes it's so much more complicated than that. And I think those are the best kind of villains, the kind of villains who sort of not only are sort of an antagonist to the protagonist in terms of like a physical, act in terms of like the physical goal of the protagonist, but also they put into question the protagonist's worldview.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because even from like the old movies from like the 60s and the of course the sequels after that, all the villains in the movie to a degree had a point, or at least had like a sympathetic motive. And like a lot of them do have like a genuine fear and of like humans or apes as like the aggressor and stuff like that, especially in like the later sequels. But in especially the first Planet of the Apes doesn't really have a villain other than technically James Franco. James Franco who ended the world. But in Dawn is when we start to get like really into kind of the more, I think that might be the reason why Rise doesn't stand out as much. It's still very, very good, but Rise really does show, I mean, Dawn and the movies onwards shows a lot more of the moral grayness of the world and how it's not as much of a subject of like, this guy is just like a straight up villain. It's like, no, a lot of them have a motive and a reason and a lot of like respects. Some of them are just like in the right, like of course there's Koba, but then there's Gary Oldman's character in Dawn of Planet of the Apes, who's like, I don't even think you can really call him a villain, just an antagonist.
Yeah, I think that's a good point where you really have to. That is the difference between a protagonist, or sorry, a villain and an antagonist. I was actually surprised because before that movie, I thought, oh yeah, Gary Oldman's the villain in the movie. But then I watched it, and the whole time I'm like, granted, again, he is an antagonist. He is in defiance of Caesar's kind of desire to, have the apes and humans work together. But at no point did I ever feel like everything he did was completely reasonable. Everything, given his, I think that's another issue. A lot of people sort of fall into a trap where they think all the characters should behave in ways as if they know everything that we, the audience, do. So like Gary doesn't know that Caesar is like a very
Smart.
kind. Yeah, he doesn't. All he sees are a bunch of like apes holding guns on horses that can beat the shit out of them if they wanted to. So like, yeah, it's understandable. And of course, he lived in a world his entire life where they were always the lesser, this very dangerous force of nature. Even at the end, I was like, he thought he was doing the right thing. He never really felt like a quote unquote villain to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting also because like later on, as you mentioned, like what characters know, there's a deleted scene that explains it a bit more. But Jason Clarke's character in Dawn, in between movies, he goes to the Colonel, Woody Harrelson's character, and he says, "Please make peace with Caesar. He's not just an ape. He's a great leader. And he was executed because they like assumed he was crazy." But it's like out of context, like. Yeah, of course the Colonel thinks he's crazy. Like if a guy just comes up to you, he's like, "Hey, you know that ape who has like an army of apes, and there was a virus made by the apes that wiped out a lot of humanity. He's actually really cool. he's awesome." And it's like, yeah, of course that guy just seems like a lunatic.
Yeah, and even Woody Harrelson's in War. It's not he's. Again, given what he's been through and everything that he kind of explains, it's kind of like, granted, of course, I don't think you're in the right, but it's, I get it. Like,
Well, also interesting in that movie, a lot of the big, like they're using the apes as like, labor force, Japan and Germany, like World War II, to like build a wall because there's another human force coming to stop Woody Harrelson, and because he's gone rogue from the rest of the U.S. military at the time. And that's another really interesting kind of like lore tidbit of like, not all the humans get along, not all the apes get along. There's like a lot of like conflicting sides, to the point where Woody Harrelson even has some apes working under him, the donkeys, who are previously they were previous allies of Koba, but then after Caesar defeated Koba, of course they ran in fear, and it's like the only person they could really turn to was, as fucked up as it is, they could only really turn to the Colonel.
Awesome, great arc for Red Donkey in War. That was
Luca. But I mean, also fuck the donkeys. I mean, sorry, not the donkeys. The orangutans and the gorillas in this are fucking insane. Like they just look. There's a little Andy Serkis in like Caesar to a degree, but it's like that just looks like a fucking gorilla.
Yeah. It looks really. The effects look really good on it. And I know what Woody Harrelson didn't he say he based his performance off Marlon Brando, right?
Yeah.
He did that with it, and then I don't know. They keep saying it feels like in a lot of these movies they keep saying, okay, this is like the last group of human survivors left, and then most of them die. And then the next movie, and then the next movie, there's still more human survivors. I mean, I get that there obviously would still be. There's a lot of human beings on the planet, but they keep saying like this is like the last batch of human survivors every single time. It seems like in these movies,
of course, we'll get to that when we talk a bit more about Rise, but also like, they kind of go back into like the character of of Koba, and kind of like how much of a villain that kind of like character sticks out of like Yeah, originally they thought of bringing him back for for War of the Planet of the Apes, but there wasn't a ton more they can do with that character. But at the same time, it's like after Koba's death, and we see it a lot more uh, in War of how similar Caesar and Koba are, no matter how much like Caesar fights against it. Because Caesar, like they both are the most human apes of that ape band, basically.
Mhm. He's really, because going back, he's kind of like the other side of the coin of Caesar's psyche, where he really wants to have humans and apes work together, but then the question becomes, if you can't, whose side are you going to take? And Koba chose his side, right? And I think rightfully so. Or actually, I should say, if
Max on the side of the apes, he has to be executed.
If there is one villain, oh my god, might be the worst. Who's the guy from Dawn? The asshole guy, the guy who like hid the shotgun.
Oh yeah,
the guy from wasn't he in Fringe?
I don't know. He was in Walking Dead, I think, in like season like 4 or something.
It seems like it.
Kirk Avocado.
Yeah, fuck that guy. I hate him so much. I was so mad at him.
Yeah. They send the most unstable person to deal with him. Granted, is that any dumber than the fucking Tom Felton's character in Rise of the guy who just has a hobby of just torturing apes, like incredibly strong, dangerous creatures that's like with very like wide bars. It's like, well, these apes are just gonna grab you, dude. Like even if like Caesar wasn't there, it's like, what, you're gonna get got, dude. Like, what are you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But also like God, for PG-13 movies as well, these can be like pretty dramatic and like pretty like intense with a lot of the violence as well. Like that whole war scene. I do wonder if it's a bit more like the censors are a bit more cool with it because they are apes.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like we see scenes of like humans being like impaled by like the spears the apes throw, but also just apes just being mowed down by like machine gun fire. And man, the fact that like we're on a level when it comes to like movies and TV shows where we can have like a mutated bonobo ride on horseback through fire with a machine gun in his hand and that not look ridiculous.
That was badass.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, like just the fact that also these movies, like they do have the big battles and stuff like that, but for the most part, these movies are pretty dramatic. I remember I was looking up some influence for a lot of these movies, and Godfather was one. Great Escape was one. Bridge of Kauai was one, and as well as like the 10 Commandments as well, which I think kind of like puts these movies into an interesting, maybe why these movies still like do so well is that these movies are kind of like mythology in a way I think we've kind of lost in like a broad pop culture sense, because it's like I want to like take like the easy target or something, but there's really no moment in these movies where it's like any like winks to the cameras or anything like that, or like a that just happened kind of moment. These movies take themselves incredibly serious. I think the reason that moment really stuck out to me was when I was just going through YouTube and I saw a reaction completion kind of thing. It was like people react to Caesar saying no, and the fact that everyone who like sees the movie is always shocked whenever Caesar says no, because he's going to talk because this is a Planet of the Apes movie, but like still they build it up so well to the point when Caesar says no, it's like such a shocking moment.
And even going back that moment where he closes the door, I don't know why, it was just like for whatever reason that was just like, oh, like it just like hit you. I'm like, we were surprised. I was like, why is this affecting us so much?
Yeah. I mean, by dawn, I'm crying just like halfway through the movie. I think it might have been the moment when the power turns back on and Gary Oldman, his iPad turns on as well, and he sees the picture of his kids and he just like starts breaking down.
Yeah, that was Who do you think has been the best so far, villain wise? There,
Villain wise, oh god, it's tough, but I think I probably have to go with Koba just because I think his dichotomy is just the most interesting, especially with Caesar, like how he's just a walking contradiction.
what if you do just the human, just humans?
Just human. Oh, I think maybe I like the Colonel a bit more than Gary Oldman in terms of like entertain. Like I think Gary Oldman's like written better, but like it's fun having like a opposition that Caesar interacts with the whole movie.
Yeah.
But also to kind of get into the moral grayness of this movie. First of all, the idea because in the original movie series, there is a virus, but it does not affect the humans. The virus is called the pet pandemic, and in the 80s, it just like wiped out all like pet life, which is why the Earth government started to use more of like apes for materials and like as like slave labor and stuff like that. But in this movie, they took the virus and they used it to mutate humans as well as not only wipe a good portion of them out, but also kind of dumb them down, which I think is just a brilliant move. Because I feel like this movie was like made in like 2000, like it would have been written in like 2010. Like even if like apes became super smart, we have so many fucking drones right now that it does feel like we could probably wipe them out fairly easy. But it's like if there was a virus that's like not only killing us but making us very, very dumb, you can see how the apes could kind of rise from this occasion. But yeah, sorry, just to speak on the moral grayness, what I really love about this movie is that it doesn't really tell you how to feel for the most part about the character's actions. For some, it does. But the moment where Caesar finally confronts Woody Harrelson, again, Woody Harrelson has killed Caesar's wife and son in a very sad manner. And Caesar goes to them for revenge, and then Caesar is just tortured and has a really rough time, and then he goes into his cabinet to try and kill Woody Harrelson, and then he finds out that Woody Harrelson he was affected by the virus and he can't speak. He doesn't kill him, but he does give him the gun as a choice to kill himself. Is that mercy, or would it be mercy if Caesar just did it himself, like just did it really quickly? And it's one of those things of like, man, the fact that your main character did this really kind of like sets him off to be a bit different than your average protagonist.
Yeah. Or I almost wonder if like it was sort of like in his last moment, Caesar was like, you can take this gun and you can kill me if you really want revenge, but then that will result in you dying this horrible slow death, or you can let that go and just put an end to your own suffering. Yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't really, even in sort of, again, in Dawn, that's sort of the thing where everyone's kind of like, I don't really know who's in the wrong here. I'm like, it's too simple. It's too simplistic. And I think even in Kingdom, that's something that carried over where even more so, I'm like, there's no one really wrong here. I get it. I get everything. The motivations are very, there's an antagonist, like you said, and the best way to put it is like, could you see the movie from, could you watch, say, Kingdom from the other side, the human side? And it's like, absolutely. Yeah.
I will say there is like, Kingdom does have like a more traditional like villain, kind of like the like some of the comics of Planet of the Apes and stuff like that, in the form of Proximus. But like even he has a point to a degree. The fact that like these, you can't forget about these movies when you're not watching them, is that they're so sad. In the first movie, God, I forgot his name. The dad who played James Franco's dad's John Lithgow. He dies of dementia.
Were you about to say Louis C.K.?
Yeah, Louis C.K. I don't know why I was thinking Louis. He dies of dementia eventually, and Caesar has to spend time away from James Franco. And James Franco created the virus and all this stuff, which created wiped out a good portion of humanity. It's not explained, but originally they planned for James Franco to die at the end of the movie. Like Brian Cox's character was going to shoot him. The explanation is he just dies in between movies of the virus.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, he hugs the main ape, so that kind of makes sense. But then we go to the next movie, and like, there's the chance of things kind of working out a bit peacefully, but it just does not work because of like the intervention of like Koba, as well as like the way Gary Oldman then calls the Colonel and stuff like that. But also just the fact that we know where humanity is heading, and we know it's going to like this awful place, and then like war is just like Caesar at his absolute lowest of like his wife and son are murdered, who you kind of think is going to be a main character, Blue Eyes, but he's murdered so not in like a way that's like masochistic, but just like in a very like kind of clear cut manner that you really probably wouldn't expect from this kind of thing, because you almost expect him to become the new Caesar. And then of course this movie ends with Caesar dying as well. It's like, man, these are such like, for movies about talking apes, are pretty sad.
Did the original movies ever get? I mean, did they pretty much delve in a lot of these territories?
A bit. They definitely have tragedies. I mean, second movie ends with the planet just blowing up, and then Cornelius and Zira, who are the two main apes, the nice ape couple, they get shot to death in the third movie. But then originally Caesar kind of like to bring it back a bit, but Caesar in the original movie, he was like, even though like they had to cut some stuff for the censors, it's a fairly dark movie, especially for the era. And there's a whole moment where Caesar takes over and like starts to, he does the ape revolution, is like ready to just like kill like a good portion of humanity. Because of like some events in the second movie, it ends up causing like a second timeline. But yeah. Oh, hold on, let me just look at the notes.
So the 8 movies, they get into like different timelines and
yeah, basically, because there's speaking of timelines, I wonder if I have one of my notes in Rise of the Planet of the Apes timeline, if Mark Wahlberg, the actor, saw what happened on the bridge, and like he has like his "if I was there, things would have gone differently." He would. Do you think he would have said that? He would have stopped Ape 9/11.
I was there, it wouldn't have gone down like that.
What a wild thing for him to say. He just
unprompted, probably. Like, Mark, we were talking about your new movie, Transformers. I don't know why you decided to bring this up, but
God, yeah. Oh, he said it wouldn't have gone down the way it went down, so maybe it would have gone worse. Maybe that's what he's implying.
I think I did a joke one time. It was like, Mark Wahlberg says if he were present for the assassination of Julius Caesar, it would not have gone. He would have taken on all those motherfuckers himself.
Yeah. Okay, I remember I saw something like someone making like fake articles of like Mark Wahlberg like being in like fictional universes of like, if Mark Wahlberg was an avatar, let's just say Sozo's Comet wouldn't have gone the way it went. Let's just say,
guys, I would be there.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, speaking of Caesar, in the newest movie, there's kind of an interesting thing with the new villain, Proximus Caesar, and kind of go back and kind of silent world building. Proximus Caesar, despite only having like maybe 30 minutes of screen time, something like that.
That might be a bit charitable. I think he's a bit maybe even lower.
Yeah, but still a shockingly very effective villain who kind of stands out, and it's like always has already become kind of an iconic Planet of the Apes character. But I did see an interesting theory of Caesar, who's both trying to mimic Caesar the ape. He might also be trying to mimic Julius Caesar, but he's like mixing the two up, which is why he has such a fascination with Roman history. Oh my God, I laughed out loud in the movie theater when Frank from Shameless said he likes history, especially Roman history. I'm like, oh my God, he's one of those ape bros. ape history, bros. But yeah. Sorry to talk about the new movie a bit. Some people were off put a bit. I really, really like this movie. What were your guys' kind of just general thoughts of it?
I thought it wasn't as good as the past ones. I think that's what kind of drags it down a bit. Also, I mean, the lead character, what was his name?
Noah.
Noah. He's just not Caesar, you know. And I understand you don't want him to be Caesar, but it's just like that was such a legendary performance from Andy Serkis. It's just a tough act to follow there. And then Proxima Caesar, who I think is interesting, he doesn't come in until the last, like you said, 20, 30 minutes of the movie. So it's like, I wish he was in it more. Because I liked him, and I liked what that actor did. That actor, I forgot his name.
Kevin Durand. He's a really big guy. He's also like a big character actor. He was the Blob in X-Men in Wolverine. So that's something.
And he just recently was in Abigail, that movie. So yeah, so that's kind of my thing. It's just like it's a solid movie, but just not as good as what came before.
I think that's fair. I think I might like it a bit more than Rise. It has been like a month since I've seen Rise, though. But yeah, Mac, your kind of general thoughts on the movie?
I think I agree in terms of I don't think it was as strong as Dawn. I think it was a bit maybe on par, if not a bit better than Rise. However, obviously, I don't think it was as good as Dawn or War. However, to my understanding, this is going to be the start of like a new trilogy, I believe. Okay. So I think because of that, now I'm looking at because I'm trying to judge it in terms of kind of how I judged Rise in terms of I understand Rise kind of had a lot to put on its shoulders and that it kind of had to set up this new world. And Dawn and War were great, but it kind of felt like it's almost like, to me, it's like almost judging granted, you can judge the films individually, but it almost to me sounds like I'm judging, is Act 1 better than Acts 2 or 3? It's like, well, no, I think in most movies or stories, it should get better as it goes. So I kind of see Kingdom as Chapter 1 or Act 1 of this new trilogy. And because of that, I think I'm a bit more forgiving of it.
Okay.
But regardless, I think it was very interesting in the sense that I think it could have just been, oh, it's here's Noah and he's just going to
save his family.
Yeah, he's just gonna be like the hero and Proximus is gonna be the villain. But what they end up setting up with May, it's like that there's kind of like this tension between them and that they're actually going to become sworn enemies in a way, kind of. Very similar to this isn't like exactly 1-to-1, but it kind of felt like a Charles Xavier Magneto relationship in the sense of like we know we care for each other, we like each other, we know we're good people, and we understand each other's motivations, but there's going to come a time when push comes to shove, we're going to be sworn enemies.
Or like if Zuko stayed like evil, or like just did not like go on his season 3 redemption. Like if he just if his term with Azula was like permanent.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of but again, it's like I'm like, or like that last scene where she has got the gun. It was very telling in the sense that like she trusts him, yes, but there's this sort of tension where they know that like our philosophies just simply do not mesh, and when it comes down to it, we may have to be. So it's almost like they're setting her up as like the future big antagonist, and I really thought that was inspired.
Yeah, it's also something really, really interesting that like I think the villains could have just been kind of generic ape villains, but the fact that this is 300 years in the future, and they're all worshippers of Caesar's philosophy, but the way they twist it, because in War for Planet of the Apes, of course, Caesar ends up becoming like a messiah figure, leading these apes to like a holy, safe, sacred land, and all that. But he has the whole like message like apes together strong. But the way later on we find out of like the way religions have kind of been created around him, and just we layers see on of just like how different factions of different apes kind of uh, use Caesar as like a almost like a religious tool to a degree. Because we have Raka, who his heart's in the right place. And he's a good person, but like he doesn't have a complete understanding of what happened 300 years ago.
Exactly. And he almost comes off as a little bit, and this is kind of what Caesar had to go through, was that as much as we sort of respect Caesar's philosophy and think it is, it's idealistic, we also think it is a little bit naive in terms of this idea that you're just everything's gonna be peace and harmony is just kind of, again, it's admirable, but at the same time, it's like, how practical is this really going to be? Is it really? And the fact that the film ends with that sort of tension just wavering there, I thought was very, very, and that's why I'm so excited for the following two in this trilogy, to really see how they explore this, and if they're going to kind of go, it's almost like they're setting up this idea that, and granted, you could argue, part of you could argue it's like, well, is this sort of a pessimistic outlook of, well, man and monkey, or man and ape, or what? Sorry, monkey. To sound better with the alliteration. Will they can never coexist because of sort of this speciesism, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. Or like almost like, I mean, this is kind of the theme in the movie of evolution. Like, who has the right to stand here? Because, humans were the dominant species 300 years ago, but that was 300 years ago. And at this point, apes, it's pretty much their planet at this point.
I thought that was really nice in Kingdom, how they kind of explore that element. Caesar's become this messiah figure, and everybody's following the different word of Caesar, these different tribes and groups. And then some people don't even know about Caesar, like Noah, and some people were diehard about Caesar, like Rocket. There, great performance from Peter McComb there.
Oh yeah, we got two Shameless actors.
Oh, he was in Shameless. Okay, nice.
Yeah, he was the cop.
Oh, okay. And a wonderful performance by him. I was sad when he left halfway through the movie.
I was so mad.
There at the end with him and with Noah and May there, it didn't make any sense that Noah was as cool with May as he was, depending on what she did at the ending with the whole like letting the dams, killing pretty much all of them. And then it's a miracle. I guess most of them survived there. So I didn't make any sense of how kind of cool they were at the end for me.
It almost seems like May has that tension to a degree, and like Noah, like she just thinks like Noah just like there's a chance of like I know I did was so fucked up that if like Noah just attacks me, I'm not gonna be shocked. Which is why she had that like gun just loaded behind her back the whole time.
That was a very that said so much without explicitly saying it. It just showed that like there is this, as amicable as they might be face to face due to like what they went through together, there is always this like there's a loaded gun behind our backs. There's always this chance that it might pop off.
Yeah, and I mean, Proximus, despite probably being the most evil antagonist in this series, does have the point when the vault opens and like everything's kind of like revealed, and he's just like, you trust a human more than you trust an ape, and you're helping a human just like get what they want, when we're technically, if we do this, we can like improve together as a society. Granted, he threatens Kevin Durant's great in this movie when May shoots one of his like ape lieutenants, and he's like, you can go, but are there more of those in there? I saw some people who didn't like May, but I think she's kind of like the Woody Harrelson character to a degree, of like she's not like just doing self-defense. She will do bad things, but she'll do it to like for overall the benefit of mankind.
There is a sort of, that's kind of where the speciesism, I guess you could say, comes in, where the humans we met in Dawn, they were great characters, but again, they were almost too idealistic, where they're almost like, no man, these apes are great. It's like, well, Caesar's great, but you're kind of being, being a little bit overeager. That's kind of why we kind of feel for Gary Oldman's character. We're like, well, Koba kind of proves that, you know, not all these apes are going to be cool with this, and all it takes is like one spark to ignite this and blow it all up. So May's kind of this more, I think, a much more realistic character in that sense. She's kind of, and granted, you have to kind of going with Koba. She has seen humans being like hunted like cattle for her whole life, and be reduced to these, just like basically animals in the eyes of the apes.
I'm sorry. Speaking of kind of that stuff, like the idealistic nature, when even originally in the old movie, not the old movie, in Dawn, when Malcolm, Malcolm, his character comes up to Caesar asking for help, and Koba raises like the very, very, very good point of why the hell should we help them? Just for the sake of the apes. It's like, if you give humans power, that means there is a good chance that humans may, just attack or use that to like gain an advantage over apes. It's like, even though like, apes like Maurice and Rocket and like even Caesar were like, beaten and tortured by humans to a degree and like have more sympathy. And they can show kindness to humans, like the little girl Nova. But the thing is, like, there really is no reason why Koba's never going to have sympathy for humans. Like, that's just it at the end of the day.
Well, I guess it made sense because, they were going to, the thing is, they're going to come and get it anyway. So whether they were trying to work out a deal or maybe they were going to come in by force, I think that's what he was thinking. Like, they're desperate and they're looking for this to turn on. So I think that's what, it was going to happen regardless, I think.
Oh, yeah. Also, quick side note, kind of a fun little thing, but Malcolm's kid is reading the graphic novel Black Hole from the 1980s, which he showed Maurice. And if you've ever read that, that's a it's about like basically an STD virus that goes around and transforms people into centipedes and stuff like that. It's an interesting graphic novel, especially something interesting to explain to a super smart orangutan. That's all that kind of stuff. And hold on, get up little notes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just want to compare this to another series that's very, very popular, and why I think this one kind of sticks out more when it comes to the digital effects of because we have talked about like digital and practical and stuff like that of Avatar. In Avatar, I know it's kind of like a popular thing to dog onto now. But I think it's like the world just seems so much interesting in Planet of the Apes, despite it being our world, because both in that movie and all these movies, a lot of stuff is shot on set and a lot of it is very practical. And I feel like when you compare the characters of both Caesar and Noah to like Jake Sully, they feel like more like they have both more like depths as a character, even just Noah, even though he's just like starting out, it does feel like it's an example of like we see how much of a personality Noah has and like how smart he is, and that's also one of the reasons why we like Caesar so much, of like because he is such a very cunning, clever person. And the thing is, like with Jake Sully, I just don't care for him because he just kind of runs into the fight. It doesn't feel like anything's like he's really touching anything. I mean, he does touch everything, but he doesn't really seem there. Because like everything's shot in the box technically with Avatar.
Yeah, and it's like I don't mean to say this is like I'm gonna try to put this amicably or not amicably, like not politic. I guess somewhat politically correct. I think the issue with like Jake is like it does get to a point where it's like, okay, do you like have you really like learned the error of your ways? Have you really like realized what you've been doing is wrong, or are you just kind of like pussy drunk? Like, did you just kind of meet like a hot chick and you're kind of like, hell yeah? Because that's kind of like, I don't know. I've seen that in a lot of movies where like I met this hot chick and now my entire worldview's changed. It's like, Okay, well, maybe that's like
He did come to a planet like, oh, one of our goals is to blow up the whole tree.
yeah, it's kind of like you kind of knew what you were doing, bro. Um, that's kind of what I like about Caesar and Noah, where it's kind of like it isn't just something as simple as like, oh, I have a romance. There is a deeper philosophy of what do we want the world to look like. That goes just beyond something as simple as like, oh, I made a friend or I made, and granted, that is a very, what's what I'm looking for? That is a very powerful storytelling device to have a character who is like sort of, symbolizes their willingness to change. But I think it's so much more interesting when the character has like an actual deeper philosophy on, because like what is Jake Sully's philosophy? Nothing. We don't even really get, like, he doesn't really go to the planet for any particular reason. He's kind of aimless, and then he just kind of likes to not be.
Doesn't he go to the planet because they said they'd fix his legs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah, or they would let him run again. Yeah, it's true. But what I mean is, like, in terms of like the political aspects of it, it's not like he's a soldier who went there believing in the cause and then he had it put into question. He's just kind of a, he's doing it for his,
very much,
kind of in a bit.
Yeah, I think it's like we see the consequences of their actions in a very different way. When, like, when what's his name, Jake, destroys his tree. He's like, "I'm sorry," and he just leaves for like an hour. Something like I don't think a lot of people kind of like picked up on was that Caesar showed mercy to the human known as Reacher in the opening of the movie. And later on, he is the human that shoots Caesar with a crossbow and is the person responsible for his death. And that's a consequence of kind of like his actions of like Caesar's kindness to a degree as well. At the start of the movie, before his kids die, before he becomes a bit more grizzled and darker. But with Jake, it's just like it's like it seems like it's like, oh, the stuff happening around you is why we should feel bad and why we should be interested. But it's just, I don't know. It's just like I get that the whole thing is like it's trying to sweep you up, and like the world itself is meant to be a character, but I just like Jake himself is just like I don't even think it's like an actor thing, because I think the actor's fine for it, but it's just he just seems very like dumb and like empty-headed and just like, oh, he's secretly the best guy around. Like if Caesar's not like, he wasn't the chosen one. He was just someone who was like in the right area and then kind of like became the chosen one out of proxy, as opposed to like Jake is like, oh, Jake's actually the coolest guy because like the trees and like the jellyfish in the air like him. It's been so long since I've seen that movie. There was like, I remember the scene where like the trees like shot jellyfish on him. It's like, oh, that's why you should like him, because he never really proves himself. And like even in Rise, there's the whole moment where Caesar, he frees Buck, he kind of outsmarts Rocket, and it could have been very easy to have like Caesar have Rocket basically be the evil one, but Rocket ends up becoming like his kind of like his left-hand man. And then, he has the whole thing with stuff outside, like the San Francisco Bridge fight. And then like in Dawn, we do see like, other apes just have opposing views to Caesar. Like not everyone is going to just be on Caesar's side. And yeah, and of course he does become a messiah figure in death, but at the same time, he's dead.
He has no control over how his legacy is going to be interpreted. And you even pointed out, I think you put it clearly, where for Jake Sully, he's kind of supposed to be a proxy for the audience. The moral, like at no point do we like agree with the humans in Avatar. I don't really even see their side. Even who's the general?
General, man. You don't need
Stephen Lane.
Yeah,
Scar guy.
As badass as he is, I do love him. I think he gives a good performance. We're supposed to meant to kind of, even if there's like when he gives his speech about it, we're kind of supposed to be like, okay, but like we're never like, I wonder. We never really get to that point. And that's sort of an issue with a lot of, even like people to bring up Thanos as like a really big example of a character who's, he's a great villain.
Yeah,
but he's still a villain in the sense of like, no, what he's doing is like no one's going to actually like, well, like not
Yeah.
really.
I mean, he's
Most
called
of
the
us-
Mad Titan in the universe.
exactly. Whereas the Planet of the Apes films, like particularly Dawn, it really set this up where I'm kind of like, well, like Koba's the bad guy. Is he? Is Gary Oldman's wrong? Is he?
Yeah.
Kurtz is wrong. Is he? May's wrong. Is she? It really does. Granted, there are, it's still a Hollywood movie, so there's,
Of course.
we see
To a degree.
Proximus is kind of viewed as, we're supposed to see him in a negative light, but it really does it digs deeper in the sense of like, no, I'm actually making you question the moral outlook on the situation isn't implied. You actually have to think about it and come to your own conclusion.
Yeah. Well, I think also this is kind of something I wanted to bring up a bit earlier, but I got sidetracked a bit. But like, I'm glad you brought up Gary Oldman's character again, Matt, because I think it could have been like a very, very easy thing to have like Jason Clarke, Malcolm is actually in charge, and Gary Oldman's like the right hand man, and Gary Oldman's like, yeah, if I just get rid of Malcolm, I could have all the power of this human settlement. That never really happens. It's like, no, Gary Oldman's in charge. He just like lost his family to a virus, or maybe the apes, and he's just trying to like keep his community safe at this point. At the end, when like Koba's invading, he's just like, look, I'm just gonna have to blow us all up in hopes to kill the one invading us. Like, he's not happy about it. He's not like I think his last line is like, I'm saving humanity, or I'm doing this for humanity. It's just like, yeah, he's just like he's just a guy who lost his family. Now he's just going through a really rough time with Koba.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
I feel like there wasn't also enough time with Gary Oldman. I feel like he's not.
That's fair. Yeah.
A whole lot. Too.
Yeah.
It kind of, there is almost that sort of the thing where it's almost like similar to like Proximus, because like Gary Oldman was initially set up as like the main antagonist, but it really was kind of Koba who was more of the threatening force. Kingdom was kind of the same way, where I like you, I was very surprised how late Proximus shows up in the film. I like it. I think it showed restraint. And I'm a bit more forgiving of it, particularly because May obviously is set up. She's kind of like the Koba of this trilogy. She's going to be someone who we kind of understand, but is going to be the is setting up as the antagonist to the protagonist's like general philosophy of what he thinks about the world.
I will say, I think Proximus like works very well because, like, even with how little he is, one, he might return, who knows, but also the fact of like Proximus's presence is just felt throughout the whole movie, with not just like the fact
the build up to it, yes,
and we meet all like his ape soldiers and all this stuff, but also the fact he has the relation to Caesar, and other characters know Caesar, like because we have the audience knows so much about Caesar, presumably, and so it's like it's just this roaming like presence of just like, and then when we meet him, and he's just like this LARPer / cult leader. That's really, it's just, we just see his empire and stuff like that. I know there is some talk of like maybe Proximus will return. Who knows? I do think it would be interesting. But also, yeah, kind of a difference in this movie, which is that we haven't really gotten with the other 3 movies, is that it does seem like May is going to return to some degree. And in the original, 3 movies, there are no returning human characters. Like, they're all just, we only get like 8 main characters, which I really like. I would be curious to see if May did return. I would understand if they want to do it kind of like the original thing and like don't have like maybe kill May like in between movies, which would be kind of dark, but it would kind of fit the series.
Because no human character has ever returned from it.
No. But especially because of I mean, James Franco didn't return because of James Franco being James Franco.
that happened in between when he was doing it? Or did
I think so.
Okay.
Or something like that.
All that weird. What doesn't he text someone or something?
Underage chicks.
Yeah. I think he was in acting class. He was like pushing up on chicks or something.
Oh god.
Doing acting class.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Also, a thing about I know we give a lot of praise to Andy Serkis, rightfully so. But Toby Kebbell as Koba, great performance, but also the fact he is now the head of King Kong in the MonsterVerse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He does the motion capture for that, which is
Oh, okay. Was
uh,
it? He was in Skull Island just as a dude too, right?
was he?
Yeah, he was like in the helicopter pilot or something.
Yeah, he was one of the guy. Did he get like impaled? Was he the guy who got like sewn apart by a weird velociraptor?
Something like. I think he was in Skull Island as just like.
Oh, he was in Fantastic Four. I forgot Fan
Mhm.
Four Stick. He was Doctor Doom. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. I think he doesn't want to remember that.
Oh man, was that before or? Okay, it was right after Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Man, going from like one of the most praised villains out there in movies to like maybe the one everyone's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Because I remember when that movie came out. I was like, oh shit, it's Cobra. He's gonna be Doctor Doom. I was like, that's pretty great. That's good casting. Yeah.
Yeah.
See how that turned out.
And now it's RDJ.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Man, news have been interesting as of like I just peek on like in every now and then. It's like what the fuck is going on? But also speaking of Marvel, why the fuck haven't they done one of their 8 villains yet? There's the Mandrill, or you could just DC should have like one of their big villains just be Gorilla Grodd because we have the technology for it. We're at a point where in the Rise of Planet of the Apes, there is over 1 million digital hairs on each of the apes, like each of them, and those all had to be hand done. So,
Jesus.
Yeah.
I will say I did think the CGI, while still excellent in Kingdom, it didn't sell it as much to me as in War or Dawn. However, I do understand that that's because it was a much more epic in scope.
Oh yeah.
In terms of like they had to kind of render the whole Proximus' kingdom and the one-on-one scenes, like when Proximus and Noah are talking, those were great. Yeah. But granted, when they had like a lot going on, but again, it didn't really. I think that's sort of something that kind of bugs me, where people are like, everyone's always jerking off over like practical effects, and like. Granted, I do agree. Usually, in most cases, it looks better. But I think sometimes people are like, they almost like poo-poo.
Yeah.
They think of like CGI or mocap. They look at it as all just like a bad or negative thing, and it's like I don't really think that's fair.
Well, I mean, if you look when it comes to practical and digital, if you look at like a lot of the movies people like talk about the most when it comes to like the big practical effects of the day, like I don't know, like original Star Wars, the Jurassic Park, Jaws, motion capture stuff like that. A lot of that stuff was like very cutting edge technology at the time, and they were using like the most stuff they can use in order to make effects. Like infamously, the T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park. That's a blend of digital and practical effects, and the whole thing was like originally like or even like you could see this in like the cantina scene in the original Star Wars of George Lucas. Like he fucking hated it originally. That's why it's so in shadow to a lot of respects. It's like I do not like how this looks. Let's put in a shadow. And then when Return of the Jedi came out and he had more of a budget, he was able to do what he wanted to, where he could just like bring out all the puppets. But it's when it comes to, I think stuff like motion capture can be really boring or even like when it comes to practical. Like that was my issue with the Tim Burton the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie of like the makeup is fantastic, but there's just no physicality with them. There's no ape likeness. There's no size, and that's the thing. In the original movie, all the apes like they hired like very very short actors, so it does kind of look like apes that kind of like evolve differently. And but in the new movie, in the Mark Wahlberg movie, it's just guys in like ape makeup and like lady apes, and like the most you'll get is just like them freaking out. It did give us Paul Giamatti in orangutan face, but.
Because Michael Clark Duncan, I know, is one of the gorillas.
Yeah, he's a gorilla general.
And he worked. I mean, obviously because of his size.
He's fucking huge.
And then I forgot who was the love interest.
Nova. Wait.
Was that Helen Bonham Carter? Right, Helen Bonham.
Yeah.
Was the female ape, right?
Yeah. She has makeup on. It looks fucking weird. like the character in the universe has like eyelashes. Well, not like and like lipstick and like shadow, and it's like it just feels weird for like someone who's just would be like screaming at the top of their like technically, yeah, it looks good, but it's like, oh boy, it's a bit too uncanny.
Yeah.
The faces do look really fantastic, but it's like it's also with the limbs as well. The limbs look way too humany for my taste, like proportion wise, especially. And it's like again, like when you do compare, like the general, like the general character, just like their overall size to like someone like just Maurice from Planet of the Apes. It's like Maurice just looks like a fucking orangutan. Like he just looks like an actual orangutan.
Yeah, it kind of. I think it kind of falls into like the cats problem, where it kind of like I think for cats like they probably should have just like done people in costumes, but if the CJ, but that was because the idea of like making them cats was bad. It was like you were trying to do like these cat human hybrids, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Whereas in these movies, no, they're just supposed to be apes. They're not supposed to be
Yeah.
like human ape hybrids. I think that's kind of what Tim Burton's view of it kind of looked like, where I'm not really sure, like, are these just supposed to be apes? Or are they supposed to be like ape human hybrids? Was that intentional? I don't know.
Well,
but that's why
yeah.
the new trilogy works, because they're just like they're not trying to be human-esque, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, the Tim Burton movie is like kind of similar to the book. In like the original book, it's very similar, but it does have like a different morality question to the original 1960 movies. But like in the original book, it's not so much apes evolved to the degree. It's just like, what if apes just suddenly became super smart and just took over? But like they were still like ape size. So it's just like regular chimpanzees, like walking like regular chimpanzees. But then, yeah, the book was weird. It has aliens and shit in it.
Yeah. You feel like the Tim Burton movies feel too much like these are guys in costumes, like it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to a degree.
And again, I don't really know if that's the issue. I don't know if that's like intentional. Like, are you trying to purposely like make them look human-esque, or is that just like you tried your best to make them look like apes and you just kind of like it's just kind of this weird?
Well, because in the Tim Burton one, isn't that's supposed to be like the remake of the original one where the apes are thousands of years in control, right?
Well, there's
like
there's no real world building in the Tim Burton ape movies for the most part, because even the 1960 Charles Heston one, there was a lot of world building, but it's like it's just like what if apes like there were just it almost feels like what if there was just a subsection of apes that acted like people but had just were apes. I mean, when we have characters like we see the rest of the world, like one of the best characters of all time. Hold on, let me just get them all out. Bad Ape in War Planet of the Apes. He tells you about the world with just his existence. He doesn't know sign language. How would the virus affect like other sides of the world? And he's more talky. But then we have apes like Caesar and Koba, and especially Maurice, of like they're not really built for talking. And you can actually see this behind the scenes of like Andy Serkis kind of imagine when Caesar talks, he talks a lot like this and very gruff. It's because it hurts his vocal cords to talk. Because apes aren't meant to, talk like that.
And great performance from Steve Zahn.
Yeah. What? There's an interview. He said it was like his most difficult performance because he has to just fucking keep his eyes open the whole time, basically. Yeah. Okay. Fucking love Bad Ape.
The little vest.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't do it. That was bad. Sorry.
No. But yeah, all that stuff. And then we see especially the world building later on with how it would go from like this to, and like even the fact, because in the original movie, Caesar and Maurice and even Koba, they all use sign language to the pretty good sign language, by the way. But there's kind of an interesting implication that Eagle Clan in the new movie Kingdom is more like they're closer to Caesar's tribe, like maybe his son to a degree. Like they might be an offshoot of that because they are the only apes to use sign language, but they don't need it to communicate. It's more like they use it when they're like extra emotional about something, or like almost like a second language to them. Because they use like the symbol for bore. I think they use like thirsty and stuff like that. And they do that when they're like talking about like how to break into like, Proximus's vault. It's just one of those things of like there's so much just character in that like subsection alone. And it doesn't really, talk to you like down about it as opposed to like, I don't know, Avatar. It's just like just a scene of like Sigourney Weaver being like, oh, the tree is the internet and you communicate with everyone. It has great spiritual powers. Like it feels like more like a, like a fleshed out world.
That's funny, that name that reminds me of Cobra Kai. John Lawrence Eagle Fang.
Oh yeah, Eagle Fang. Yeah. I saw the last season. What do you think?
I thought, this is just part one, so they're gonna do part 2 and 3, so they split it up. So first part, I'm glad that this is the last season, because not because it's bad, it's just because like I feel like you've done all you can do here.
Remember when the big thing was just a karate tournament in season 1 when it was still a YouTube show?
Yeah, now they're going all around the world internationally.
Cruise and all that stuff. But anyway, so just very, very quickly, I would like, how would you guys like rate this movie if you could rank them in order from favorite to least favorite?
Favorite one probably is Dawn. It's my favorite. Least favorite, if you're including Kingdom, I guess, because
Kingdom.
Because this is supposed to be the start of a new trilogy, like Max said, like they're gonna continue. So you got to look at almost like Rise there, where it's the start of it. Maybe Kingdom would be maybe the worst, but it's not terrible. It's just the other ones are just very good.
Okay, Mac.
I'd probably go Dawn as the top. I would almost say War and Rise would be tied, but I think Rise is. I think the human story really dragged it down a bit. So probably Dawn, War. I'll probably go Kingdom and then Rise. Everything's very, very close. But I think Kingdom is going to be looked upon more favorably if they're able to. And I have no reason to doubt that why, but based on the promise of Kingdom, I think once the next 2 films in the trilogy complete the story, I think it's going to be looked on a lot more favor. I think it's just, it kind of had a little bit of a handicap in terms of, like Josh said, you're going from, Caesar and Koba, like these incredibly strong, well-developed characters, into something whole new. So the loss of them is still felt, which isn't really, it's kind of hard. I feel guilty judging it on that metric because, it's not Caesar and Koba. It sucks, but it's kind of, you kind of can't help it because they were so strong.
So are you saying Koba should just be in more movies?
Yes, they should bring him back.
Do you have that
Force Ghost, I don't care.
Oh yeah, of just
memes of where people just put him in movies like Paddington. Do you have that?
Oh god, that would be good cop, bad cop of like we need that buddy cop movie. God. Hold on, let me just find. God, who knew a bonobo named after a nickname Joseph Stalin had in the revolutionary days would become such a popular character? Also, fucking, again, kind of like little scientists. It's like to a degree, that is like part of humanity to a degree, and like humans have done that dumb shit, but it's like, you really didn't see the sign of like this super angry looking bonobo with the huge scar named like after Joseph Stalin. Like you didn't see any of the red flags there. But anyway, if I had to give a ranking, I'd go Dawn, War, Kingdom, and Rise, but they're all incredibly solid movies. I am very, very excited to see where this franchise comes. Originally, the Kingdom did not do super well, but they left in theaters, and like it kind of became a big hit. Like all these movies are, because they're all these movies are kind of like big sleeper hits, though. Like they don't really like shatter box office records, but they all do very, very well.
It's almost up to 400 million. That's not bad. Yeah, granted, the budget is high, but still, that's very impressive.
I think the new franchise, like in total, has broken $1 billion.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, fucking. As we see with the MonsterVerse with King Kong, people love apes, people love primates. Just put them in more stuff.
Who does the King? It's Warner Brothers who does the Planet of the
Yeah,
Apes.
Warner Brothers.
Okay, they do those, yeah.
Yeah,
They need a
but-
win right now, considering all
They
the
sure do.
yeah.
financial issues they got going.
Yeah, God, yeah. It's funny just watching like the level of difference we get with some of these movies of like 8 movies. Like, oh, there's King Kong, which is MonsterVerse, which is like a fun buddy cop thing with like King Kong going on like his weird adventure. But then we have like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is the start of what I would like to call the sad ape franchise. Just, oh man, I can't wait for this character to just cry because I do not mean this to sound mean at all, but this actor has like an amazing like face for like a sad ape.
What's he been in before? You know,
I don't know. I remember this one of the Ape Friends was like it was their first movie, I believe. King of the Planet of the Apes. Owen Teog. Oh, he was in It. Huh.
Oh, okay.
He might have been one of the bully characters.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, he was in Gone in the Night. Did you guys see that movie?
Going in the Night?
Yeah, with Winona Ryder.
No,
I
another
didn't-
one.
No,
It's not
I didn't see
good.
that.
Oh God, what's so? He wasn't one of the kids, was he?
How old is he?
Because he's
probably
not. He's like 20 something.
25.
he's
And
25.
it came out what 2027. So he might have been maybe one of the bullies, maybe
Maybe.
older kids. that were
Okay,
bullied.
yeah, he was one of the white trash boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, which fuck, I
So
could have been. Yeah, I couldn't have been in that movie. I would have been the same age as him, but like, even back then, I had too much facial hair to come off as a kid. Which is why the people of the Planet of the Apes movie, please make me an ape. Please make me an ape. I would do so well.
Which ape? What kind of ape would you want to be?
I think chimpanzee would just be
Okay.
easier. Like in
Nice.
general. God, no, yeah. I have the body hair for it. Just please let me in it.
One of these days.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. Josh, why don't you let people know where they can find you?
The Afternoon Tune on all social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, all the Afternoon Tune. If you want to send us an email with any questions, concerns, you can do so at theafternoontune@gmail.com. Also, where listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you see us on any of those platforms, make sure we do 5 stars because the podcast does a lot for us. We're on twitch.tv/Afternoon Tune. Usually streaming every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, sometimes Wednesday there. Got some upcoming stream this Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time with Sage from Rated Infinite Maturity. We're going to be doing a review for Metal Gear Solid 3, and we're going to be doing a review for X-Men Legends, as well as Hunter x Hunter. Doing a review of that arc. Green Island arc is the arc Monday. Also, this upcoming Friday, we're also going to be streaming on Twitch there probably later in the day. Nick, my co-host, and Dust, my co-host, going to be taking over that show. I will be gone. They're going to be doing a review for Alien Romulus there, the new Freddy Alvarez movie there. Also, youtube.com, the Afternoon Tune, just typed it in, you're able to find us there. Trying to get to 2K subs there, trying to get to 2K on Twitter, trying to upgrade all of the stuff there, trying to follow some of the stuff that's on the tree right there if you want to see us. So, yeah, all the things, everything, just Afternoon Tune, type that in, you'll be able to find us.
Nice. Mac, let them know what you're working on, where they can find you.
I am Mac from Macabre Storytelling on YouTube. Check me out. Long form media analysis, some men's issues videos. That's your thing. Stop on by.
Yeah. All right. All good stuff. Yeah, I'm Gray Works as always, the creator of Howling Hoods, Miss Manhattan. This channel's just basically whatever at this point. We have an indie interview with the creator of Boxtown this Friday, so make sure to catch that. They are also working with cool people like Alex Hirsch, and they are also very pro animation rights. So yeah, if you want to see indie animation like Get Tree Bear, you gotta check out that guy. So, but yeah, thank you for tuning in, everyone. See you later. Apes together strong.
Take care.
Take care.